So the in '87 you recorded the Borneo Horns record.
Yeah.
What was the whole idea behind it, the concept?
Well, the Borneo Horns was a saxophone trio that was the horn section for the David Bowie tour, and I had been composing for 8-track tape and synthesizer and all the instruments I play at home, and I was not writing things down very much. I was doing a little bit of that, but mostly I was recording these things, writing and recording. And then I got on the road, and there was nothing to record on, nothing to hear my work on. So I enlisted the horn section from the group to be my playback system, and I would write saxophone trios for them. And we were gone so long, and David didn't like to sing more than 2 or 3 times a week, so we had a lot of days off. So I would get them to rehearse with me and learn my pieces. We got back to New York. One of the theater people I'd worked with before asked if we wouldn't open one of his performances with a little saxophone trio thing. He heard some of the music and he liked it, and we got invited to do more and more of that. And then I think Jeff Moldauer heard a recording of mine that I made at a live performance on the Columbia station. Was it BAI or what's
KCR.
KCR, right. I did an interview on KCR, and Jeff Moldauer heard that, and I was simultaneously working at SNL at the time, and Hal Willner does the needle drop for us. He selects music to play behind sketches and finds records for it. And so we become acquainted, and he liked the music, and Jeff liked the music. So it was really an accident. But they heard us on KCR and asked. I got a phone call. Would you like to do something? He knew Joe Boyd, who'd done all the Fairport Convention stuff and all that music, Sandy Denny and all those things from the '60s. And he had a record label, and Jeff was working with them, and he thought it would be an interesting combination of label and artist, and he asked me if I'd do a record for him. So I did. And Joe Boyd liked the record. He thought it was on their sampler, on the Hannibal sampler for a while. So one of the songs was. And so it was kind of a series of accidents that put the group together. And because we had this recording now, and I had interest for gigs, I got a manager and an agent, and started to tour. We toured Europe, we toured the States, and did a few years from like maybe '86 or so till '92. We did a fair amount of work, but it didn't fall. I mean, I got busy with the TV show and other things, and didn't follow up with another record. And it's the group is still there, but we don't perform that often. I actually hired them for a recording session the other night for this group, Razorlight, English band, who's got big hits in the UK, and we did a horn section overdub for them. So we still see each other. But it was a terrific experience, and the music still exists. I've been teaching at NYU to some of the one of the ensembles. Music's quite difficult. It requires a fair amount of rehearsal and concentration. So it's good as an educational tool as well.
And I know you've probably written countless charts since then, and recorded a ton of electronic music and all sorts of stuff. How come you haven't put out really a commercial album for the public to hear since then?
Well, commercial I think is the key word. I don't think most of what I've been doing is terribly commercial. And people haven't been breaking down the doors asking me to make another record. I suppose if there was great interest, it would just happen. The few offers that I've had they haven't really seemed that realistic in terms of making sure the product would get out to the people. I mean, I look at their distribution, things like that, and I don't really see the point in making the recording unless there's a distribution attached to the other end of it. So. And that's been a lot of the problem. I mean, you can see the record business has not been terrifically healthy the last 10 years or so, and that has a lot to do with it. I suppose if the record business were a more thriving thing, there'd be more room for obscure, music. But right now, I know that the share of records that are jazz records that are sold is around 1% of the total sales, and that has to include all of Kenny G's work and all of the Miles Davis re-releases and every other popular version of jazz. I think that something like what I'm doing would be, maybe 1/10 of 1% of 1%. So it's not like a lot of commerce going on there, and commercial things require commerce. So
right. So how did you get the SNL gig? I guess you started in '85.
Total fluke. Just series of accidents. I got a call to play with Hall & Oates, and a few gigs with them, and G.E. Smith was the guitar player, and he recommended me to Howard Shore, who was the music director in the beginning of when the show started again in '85. Apparently it had been canceled over the summer of '85, and Lorne Michaels came back and they reinvigorated the show and brought it back to life. And he hired his original music director, was Howard Shore, who was the guy who wrote those scores for the Lord of the Rings films, as well as a lot of other things. But at the time he was a music director, and he had been a saxophone player himself with a group from Canada, similar to Tower of Power, and they were looking for someone who played like I did. And GE knew me from the Hall & Oates thing. You know, and that was just saying yes to one of many other things I said yes to. And that's how it works.
And, you know, I think people hear SNL and they hear you play, especially, you know, between commercials or, you know, in the beginning section and the end, but, you know, I'm sure there are many more musical duties involved in being the director at SNL. What kind of stuff do you do?
Well, you know, I participate in the writing of music for the show, and I participate in the, I organize, you know, the band and all the activities the band is, you know, has, you know, anything that involves the band, and that ends up being a lot of things, you know, like everything from, you know, with the, getting them involved with the wardrobe department and getting them involved with the, you know, the sketches and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of interaction between the different departments there, and I'm the person who is sort of the go-to person for that with regard to the band. In addition to that, I make tracks for them. I have a computer up in my office, and I make, you know, music for the show directly on the computer. I oversee to a degree, but the woman who works with me, Melanie Malone, does most of the work with the guest bands. But it's my job to sort of see that that's going well. And I always go down to hear them play, you know, when they're there to make sure, you know, and I ask them questions and that sort of thing. There's a lot of supervisorial work that goes into it, and a lot of meetings that have to be, you know, attended. When you're the head of a department, a lot of what you end up doing is making sure you know what's going on, and making sure you're available to the producers so that they can, you know, if they need something, they can let you know.